Hello. Welcome
Hello.
to the True Conscious Couple podcast. I am Tiffany Lancaster.
And I'm Brad Lancaster. We are a blended family. When we got together, I had 4 kids, Tiffany had 3, and we've had 1 together.
We're also a couple that runs a business together.
And so we talk about those things. We talk about our journey of self-discovery, of self-improvement.
We talk about the struggles of blended families. We talk about the struggles of business. And we talk about the struggles of doing inner work.
And we also talk about the joy, the peace, the love that comes along with all of that.
And what makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, so come along for the ride.
Hope you enjoy.
Welcome to episode 22
22.
of the True Conscious Couple podcast.
Sweet.
We've been, as we've been going down this journey of doing a podcast, we've been figuring out what we want to talk about, what we really like talking about, because we have a lot of interests, yoga, working out, business, families. And this has kind of turned into the focus has really become relationships and specifically blended family relationships. However, in the last episode, we spent a lot of time talking about self-esteem issues where women are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get going, any takeaways, anything that's come up for you since we did that?
No, not really.
Nothing at all?
No, I mean, other than it definitely felt like it was something that needed to be covered. I mean, since we did it, it's brought, those thoughts and stuff more into my awareness. And so, I mean, I can honestly say I haven't been dealing with it quite as much.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. But other than that.
That's kind of the point, right?
Right.
Is when there is something that is troubling us or hurting us, we can continue to stuff it away. And I've been guilty of this a lot of my life. If there's something that I'm not happy about, I try to just stuff it away and ignore it or avoid it, or we can talk about it.
Yeah.
We've made the conscious decision that we're going to talk about a lot of these things on a podcast.
Yeah. I feel like we've kind of just used this podcast as a place to talk about all the things that a lot of people don't want to talk about. We've talked about really vulnerable things, I think, that a lot of people don't want to look at or are too afraid to talk about. And so our hopes are, I think, that by us talking about it, it kind of makes it not so scary for other people.
Yeah. And we're not therapists. We are going through a process of training as yoga instructors. You're already a certified yoga instructor, and it's our trainers just recently told us they're the brand of yoga that they are trademarking and training us in is called inner work yoga, which is what it's felt like for the last 8 months.
Yeah.
Excuse me, that I've really been engaged in inner work at a higher level, probably than I ever have been at any one time. Although it's definitely been a process or a path that we've been on for a long time. Yeah.
So the topic we decided on for today's episode is men's insecurities, right?
Yeah. Last week we talked all about women and image issues and things like that. And so we thought we would talk about
pressure of being beautiful
all the time.
So what is the thing that men are insecure about? What's the thing that you've been insecure about?
The place, and I've thought a lot about this week. I mean, I deal with a lot of insecurities, but the one thing or a couple things that I hear over and over again from men when I get into relationships with men, dealing with this insecurity that basically we're just supposed to have it all figured out. When we're, especially as fathers and as adult men, like we're supposed to be able to earn a great living, provide for a family, protect a family, show up as especially in today's world, show up as a fit father that's able to, it's almost a meme, like an entrepreneur father, like you have a six-pack, you compete in triathlons, you coach your kids' games, you have a 7-figure net worth, you could retire at any one moment, and you only work because you really love what you do. I mean, that's not much pressure. And it's shown up for me in so many different ways throughout my life. I can remember the first time I really felt this was when I was turning 30. I had graduated from college, was married, let's see, that was in 2001. So Rachel had just been born, so I had 3 kids. And realized I wasn't financially free. I still had to work. I was still struggling. In 2001, I was a real estate agent and real estate investor, flipping houses, but like still dealing with the fact that some months there just wasn't enough to pay all the bills. In fact, in that year, I lived in my parents' house for a while they were, I forget where they were. They were either on a mission or had gone to Arizona, so my dad could teach golf during the winter. And then we moved into my ex-wife's parents' house that year as well, because they were going on a mission. So, like I can remember already at that time, like feeling the pressure. I took some time leading up to 30 to get myself in shape, to get in better shape. Spent like 6 months doing a program. Do you remember Body for Life? Mm-hmm. I've talked to you about Body for Life. Followed that program pretty like disciplined, worked out every day, lost weight, got in shape. But I was still, like there were still pieces of my life that weren't quite where I wanted them to be. And
how does it show up for you like now?
I'll still a lot the same way. That's like, as I've been reflecting on it, the difference was, so like right now, I still have friends, and I'm because I'm an entrepreneur in the entrepreneur space. Like a lot of friends in entrepreneurship is above all else, it's a spiritual journey. And I've come to grips with that, at least for me. But it's also a journey of personal development. So there's the physical aspect of the journey. There's a relationship aspect of it. Like, how are you doing with your significant other and your role as a father, as a husband. There's the financial aspect. How are you doing earning income, and not just earning it, but mastering the financial game? Are you making smart investments? Are you, am I making smart investments? Do I even have investments? Am I doing anything to take care of my family's financial future? And then there's the spiritual aspect as well. And then the whole time I have to be learning all the time as well. Like, because one of the things I believe is like, there is so much that I don't know or don't understand just about life in general, about all those areas, right? About my physical, my relationships, my financial world, my spiritual and emotional world. And I shouldn't combine those two, spiritual and emotional. Those are different things. They're really closely related. and then the mental aspect. So here's a couple areas where it really has been shining for me lately. Number one is my physical. I deal with body image issues, like we've talked about. Excuse me. I feel like I'm surrounded by people that are just absolute physical beasts. Like they've got their workout game dialed. A lot of them are, walking around, 40, 50-year-old men with six packs. I don't have a six pack. I think right now my body fat percentage is like somewhere between 22 to 25%, I think, which is too much. Like it's borderline obese, but I'm active. I walk every day. I think I eat decent, but I'm not shredded. I'm strong, and I do active things. So I struggle with that. Like, yeah, I struggle with that. And then the other thing that, like, I feel like I've shared this a lot. Our relationship is one of the areas that I'm most proud of, because I feel like I give it a lot of time. It's something that I read a lot about relationships. I think a lot about our relationships, our relationship with our kids. And I should have gotten a drink before I came in here. Steal your. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So overall, I think I do really well in relationships. And then there's the financial part of it that's been even though we've made a lot of money, and I've struggled being a good financial manager, and being a good, like running a good financially sound business, paying ourselves first, setting up cash flow management systems. In fact, it's like, I'm not embarrassed to say I can say until this year, like I didn't really even understand what cash flow management really meant. What cash flow management meant for me up until this year was, as long as we had enough money in our accounts to pay the bills, to pay payroll, to pay whatever, we were doing okay.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about something, because it's been something that I've been thinking about for a while, where financial freedom, because there's a lot of people out there that believe, I think in the spiritual community, there's a lot of people that think, well, if you're chasing like material wealth, financial wealth, then you're not enlightened. You're not a spiritual person. Mm-hmm. And one of the most profound things for me that helped me understand that financial freedom, it's not possible to have freedom, true freedom. And I think freedom and enlightenment go hand in hand.
Yeah, they're synonymous, right?
Yeah. It's the story that Doug tells. So recently, Brad and I went to a training, and one of the speakers there told a story about getting burned and being in the burn unit for months.
A year?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a full year he was there. And he had already created financial freedom. I'm not trying to take this in a whole different direction, but I think that this is important to touch on, because I think it's such a struggle amongst people. But anyway, he was there, and he told the story about all the other people in the burn unit that didn't have any family there, because their family had to choose between earning money and spending time with their family there in the hospital. In the burn unit, yeah. In the burn unit. And one specifically that he talks about was an 18-month-old boy whose mother had to go to work every day, rather than being there with her son while he was experiencing excruciating pain and going through probably one of the worst things he'll ever have to deal with in his life. And so he talks about that's what financial freedom is. It's not having to make that choice. He was able to heal because he had the money available to do it. And so I think a lot of times people think that you must be greedy or you must like be shallow if you're trying to seek financial freedom. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's, that if you're listening to this, Tiff and I, we work a lot, and some of our friends have even like assumed that we're workaholics, that we'd rather work than do anything, but that's not true. We work because we understand the importance of it, of providing for our family. And over the last 6 to 8 months, I've come to realize what you just said. Freedom and enlightenment are synonymous. They're the same thing. Enlightenment is this ability to be free from all of those, all suffering, right? Everything that will cause suffering, whether it's your ego, judgment, all those lower themes of consciousness that we talk about: shame, judgment, guilt, hopelessness, grief, fear, worry, pride, anger, all of these things that cause suffering within us, being able to be free from those.
Yeah.
And like, we can't be free from those in our world. Well, a couple different, like, in fact, from a yogic standpoint, what were they called? The ascetics that would go into the cave. Is that what they were called? The group that believed that the path to enlightenment was to remove yourself from the world.
Yeah, it's not coming to me right now, but
we know the image of whether it's the yogi or the indigenous, or even the person who just left the world and they've risen above it, and they go and they meditate all day. They sit in a cave, they sit in a tent, whatever. They've completely removed themselves from the world. Okay, I guess they don't have the suffering of this world.
But what impact are they making on the
what
world?
Difference are they
on
making?
The reality that we're living in?
Yeah.
And I think the reason why I wanted to bring this up, because yes, this has definitely been one of your traumas. And one of the things, you mentioned earlier that we've made a lot of money, and we have made a lot of money. We've mismanaged a lot of money, but I think it stems from this subconscious program that money is bad.
Mm-hmm.
We've wanted to stay in this, we work really hard for our money. You talk about how hard we're working.
Mm-hmm.
We've worked hard almost subconsciously, unconsciously, to try to prove that, almost that we're not wealthy. We're working for it. We're your average folk.
We're working class folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're blue collar.
We're not trying to be super wealthy. We're not greedy. We're not, we're not those people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been almost like a self-sabotage type
for
thing
sure.
that we've done.
In fact, sabotage was the word coming. I've definitely sabotaged myself repeatedly.
Yeah. Because we've been afraid of being judged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's taken a lot for me to understand that these themes of consciousness show up as patterns, right?
Mm-hmm.
They do. They show up as patterns. And so when I'm working to heal some kind of emotional, spiritual trauma, the universe, God, creation is going to give me opportunities to show that I've healed. And it's not always going to look like the same thing. Um, the easiest analogy for me, and then I'll show like how it shows up for me. The easiest analogy is addicts. And I think we've spoken about this. Addicts, a recovering addict still refers to themselves as an addict for a reason, because they understand that it's always there. The work is never done as an addict until you die. Once something has had this, especially where chemical addiction, where drugs, alcohol, I would even think porn, any of those addictions. There's another addiction. There are other addictions out there that don't get as much run, don't get as much popularity. There's an addiction to chaos. We can get addicted to chaos in our lives. We can get addicted to trauma. We can get addicted to being victims. We can get addicted to these lower themes of consciousness, where they're literally the thing that, because every human has a need for significance in their life, it becomes the significance.
So are you saying that's what you've dealt with? Or
I think so.
what,
Yeah, I think so.
like in what way?
The self-sabotage, where I've, the scariest thing, the self-sabotage where something is in my wheelhouse. For example, like I know how to run a certain part of our business, or there's an opportunity, like working in a certain part of our business, whatever it is. And recently it's, the thing that's come to me is our running our construction business. We had a good idea to run a construction business, and we just recently closed the construction business. True Homes and Construction, we made the decision that we're going to shut it down. I am working on telling myself the most empowering story about it, while also being conscious about why it never really worked, why we were never able to be profitable with it. Because I want to make sure I absorb the lessons without beating myself up, but also take the appropriate amount of accountability.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we started the construction company with the intention from the very beginning. The intention was never to turn a profit. We were honest about that. And I know that sounds crazy. Why the hell would you want to start a business that's not profitable? We understand now that is a ridiculous notion, and
it's a terrible idea.
You should never start any business not looking to turn a profit. But the idea for us was that the construction company would just serve our flip business, and they're poor planning. Like,
terrible.
I don't even know that we ever actually. I don't think that I ever asked you to show me numbers on how that would save us money. I just trusted you that it would. It would, because I remember you saying it would be cheaper for us to do this rather than hire a GC.
Yeah, than to hire a general contractor. Yeah, and no, you never did. And we never really came up. We never really developed a business plan for the construction company. We said, well, we're gonna need these positions. We're gonna need somebody to actually have a contractor's license. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned is number one, don't run a business without the what's the goal of any business?
To turn a profit.
Yeah,
to make money.
To make money. You guys, that's a spiritual endeavor. Money is nothing more than an energetic expression of appreciation, of gratitude, of value. Mm-hmm. It's just an energetic expression. That's all it is. And we make more of it than it is. We as humans, I've turned it into an energetic expression of greed. It can be that. It can be an energetic expression of pride. it can be an energetic expression of shame.
Well, I think the majority of people have major traumas where money is concerned. They have major limiting beliefs. This whole idea that money is evil, money is the root of all evil, money is bad. I think the majority of people believe that. And I think you getting vulnerable today is like saying, yeah, I believe this. And it's shown up in our lives as that.
And I've spent a lot of time in the last few months working on this one, rewriting my financial blueprint. What do I really think about money?
Yeah.
How does money really, what's its place in my life?
Yeah.
And really starting to respect money.
I had this other thought that, people think that one thing that you hear people with a poor money mindset say is like, people who are rich, they just obsess about money. That's all they ever think about is money. That's all they care about is money. But the truth is, if you're financially free, you don't think about money that much. It's the people who are poor, who are always worried about money, who are trying to figure out how they're going to pay their bills. They're the ones that are obsessed about money. They're the ones that are always thinking about money.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're thinking about the lack of money.
Yes.
Right. So it becomes this basic idea that what you focus on is what you get.
Yeah.
I had a friend. Oh, go ahead.
But the more financially free you are, the more you're able to enjoy your life and reside, in my opinion, in a higher theme of consciousness, because you're not in this space of lack.
Right. Yeah. And if you're not in lack, then the opposite becomes true, right? You can be in just equanimity.
Yeah.
You can be in full on the exact opposite of lack. I guess the opposite of lack would be like excessiveness. Could be, right? But somewhere in between there's this sweet spot.
Right.
Of just equanimity where you're just okay.
Yeah.
You're not like
there's
boasting about your money.
There's definitely those people. I mean, those people do exist, but I think it's a lot more rare than people assume, for the super greedy. I think it's really crucial for the average person actually to, because money is power. And I believe that we're in a place in the world where more people, good people, need to have more power, more control over the world, more influence. And it comes through money. It comes through the power of money. So we basically, we need more money in good people's hands.
Well, yeah. I mean, nobody ever opened, well, let's talk about the event that just happened this week, the groundbreaking for the Harris Community Center here in Tooele.
Yeah.
Tiff sits on the board for the Tooele County Housing Authority, and they've partnered with a nonprofit called the Give Group, a nonprofit called the
Friends of Switchpoint.
Friends of Switchpoint, and they bought an old elementary school here in Tooele. I don't know how big it is. Big elementary school. And they've developed plans for a community resource center, soup kitchen, supported housing for homeless.
Yep.
Daycare. What else am I missing?
I think it's going to have like an emergency women's shelter, men's shelter.
Over 60 units of supportive housing.
66
units of supportive housing. This is a multi-million-dollar project.
Mm-hmm.
And that's multi-million dollars. It takes money to get this project going.
Yeah.
And the project's coming from, or the money is coming from several different sources, right? Some of it's coming from from Tooele County, and they have money that's designated for homeless, helping homelessness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tooele City has money that's dedicated for that. but the largest portion of the money is coming from Goldman Sachs. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of money that's been raised, but it took somebody. I mean, the irony about all of that, the woman that's headed that up, that runs the Friends of Switchpoint, she was a real estate developer. She raised money for regular real estate development. That's where she learned the skill of raising large sums of money to be able to do it. And I've never talked to her about her whole entire story, but from everything that I've gathered, she lost a lot of money in '08 and decided from there on out she wanted to like run nonprofits and raise money for nonprofits to do projects like this. And so she did a project down in St. George, Switchpoint. It's a homeless shelter down there. It's more like they're calling it Harris Community Village because it's more a community village. Like the one in St. George has a pet parlor. There's a thrift store down here. And so what they do is they basically teach these homeless people, they give them skills, they give them hope. And they have a job within the community that they do to make money and to like earn their keep basically here at the community. So it's a really cool thing. But yeah, I mean, it starts with somebody who knew how to make money.
Somebody who knew how to make money, somebody who knew how to raise money. And Goldman Sachs is like one of the largest financiers behind it, financiers. And there was somebody else I'm missing. Who was I missing? Anyway, there was a lot of money raised from different organizations. And my point with that is
you're thinking HUD, I think.
Oh, HUD, yeah, and Utah Housing Corp.
Mm-hmm.
Utah Housing Corp. That's who I was thinking of. Utah Housing Corporation, who provides loans for low-income first-time home buyers and other and Section 8 housing and other things. So where was I going with that? Where were we? How did we get on that subject?
Just that money needs to get into more good people's hands.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the power of money in good people's hands.
Yeah.
And so by focusing on what money, like the good that money can do, the power that money can have, the saying that money, focusing on those negative stories, and we've all been raised with them, like, and not because of anybody's fault. It's just the way I was raised. We can't afford that. I heard that a lot. And we'll have to wait till next payday. That was probably the most common answer whenever a kid asked if we could do something. The most common answer was we'd have to wait till next payday. And I didn't really get terribly conscious about money. Well, the biggest consciousness that I had about it was when 2008 happened, and then 2009 I lost millions of money of partners and investors, and so I started telling myself stories about money, that I was a bad money manager. People had trusted me. I had raised money for developments, for real estate projects, and lost a lot, and ended up going to jail in 2016 because of it. And so I've been dealing with this story that I'm just not a good money manager, and that the best thing I could do is just provide for my family. If I can just provide for my family, make sure that we have, house, food, clothes. If we can take a trip every now and then, that's great. And that would be an admirable thing. And to stop that, it was, in fact, I told myself that it was my greed that caused my problems, that I was just greedy. To want money was greedy. Mm-hmm. But really what I was doing, there was a lot more to it. It was about significance. It was about trying to be something I wasn't. And so there was a lot more to it than just flat out greed, although greed was a part of it. And And then ultimately, and the other thing about money that's interesting, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the thing that we've always learned is if you're not living if you're not living a life of integrity, if you're not in alignment with integrity, the universe will expose it and give you the opportunity to correct it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I think that in '08, you eventually corrected it, but you were exposed, and there was a lot of healing that happened.
Yeah.
During that time.
Yeah. And well, the interesting thing, especially like this time, as it's been happening, as we've been seeing the real estate market correct and crash, we've lost money. We've lost money with partners. And while I haven't been perfect, the one thing I'm pleased with is I've dealt with it at a much higher level of integrity than I did in 2008. Just owning the fact that we're upside down on properties, we're upside down on projects. We've spent more money than we should have on projects. Projects aren't going the way we hoped they would. And not avoiding, I avoided people's phone calls in 2008 and 2009. I lied to people when they asked me what was going on. I just flat out lied to them. Where now that's not my game plan. And it doesn't mean
from what I observed, you kind of just ran away from it and expected it to go away.
Right.
And would you say you've taken a more proactive approach in just solving the problems?
For sure. Although I will say this, like one of the areas that I'm still working on is I still hate dealing with uncomfortable conversations, especially where money is concerned. It's still something I'm working on.
Yeah.
Whether it's with a vendor or a partner, I still struggle with it. I still find myself making excuses for why I can't have that conversation yet, or why something I need to do before I do it. One of the pieces of advice you give me that I hear and I work to implement is when something needs to be done, do it now.
Yeah.
And that's an area that because here's the interesting thing. So this whole conversation is about self-esteem, right, for men.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the biggest self-esteem boost that you get as a man is in keeping your word. Because all these areas that I talked about, your physical, your spiritual, your emotional, your financial, your relationships, so many of them are solved with just integrity, where you know something. And like we were taught this last summer, the root word of to integrate and integrity, the root comes from the Latin integra, which means whole, to be made whole, integra. So integrity is to be whole. Everything's there. The opposite of to be whole would be to be divided, or duality. And I've tried that before. I've tried living a dual life, being one thing in one area and another thing somewhere else, depending on who I was with. And I don't know how else to tell you, men, but like that doesn't work. Your soul will not ever rest. If you're dealing with insomnia, I'm not saying you're out of integrity, but I'm going to ask you, because and this is just from my own experience, when I've had the most trouble sleeping, it's because there's been a part of my life that hasn't been in alignment, been whole.
Yeah.
When I'm having trouble staying on top of my physical, there's something in my life that's out of integrity. It might be, it's not, the physical is just, for me, so often it's just a reflection of something else that's going on internally.
For sure.
Some other, like, what's the word? Split. Where I'm not quite
in alignment.
Yeah. And so the solution becomes, okay, where am I out of alignment? Like one of the areas is just like, how am I doing with you and confiding in you and trusting in you. One of the areas that I feel like I've let you down recently is just not really trusting you where our business is concerned, and following your lead. I've allowed my ego to be the thing, whether it's in a marketing plan or execution. I've allowed my ego to be the thing that says, "Oh, this is not Tiff's area of expertise, or this is your area of expertise, Brad. This is, you know what really needs to be done here." That's not integral. That's not being honest. That's me being scared, and me not trusting is
What specifically you should get? I feel like you need to get more vulnerable.
more vulnerable. Well, like I'm talking about like the conversation we had yesterday, where you were upset at me because I brought to you some basic ideas that I had heard on a mastermind call, and they were how we can stay in touch with our sphere of influence. They were how we can execute on a constant contact program. And these were programs or ideas that you had already brought to the table. And I had...
It's a program that we already own.
Right. Yeah.
That we already purchased like 2 years ago. And recently I came to Brad and said, "Hey, I think our BA needs to start implementing this system." And I rewrote his job description. We had a meeting and Brad literally told me, "No, we're not paying for our VA to do that. You have to, he needs to be making phone calls and doing other stuff. Take it off. Yeah. Take that off his job description." And then he came to me yesterday and was like, "I had this amazing call. So-and-so says they're using this program and they're having their VA do it. And it's like genius." And I was so fucking triggered.
Yeah.
So triggered. I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, what?" What? Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah. and that you got triggered and you got mad at me, and then I got mad. And
I wasn't really mad. I was just pointing out, like,
oh, you were mad.
Do you not?
You were angry.
Oh, I was angry. But I wasn't like freaking out. I wasn't freaking out. I was just like, what I was angry about is that you didn't come to me and say, "Hey, I screwed up."
So, would have been such a better way for me to handle it.
You didn't come to me and say, "Hey, you know that thing you've been trying to get us to do, and you know how you wanted Patrick to do this? I just realized like that was a mistake to not let you do that, to tell you no." You came to me and said, "I have a great idea," or so-and-so came up with this genius idea, and here's what I'm going to do. Isn't it great? Like almost like that had never even happened.
Well, that's not exactly how it happened, but we'll go along with it. That your perspective was that's how it happened.
Yeah. Well, you definitely didn't acknowledge anything about me bringing it up.
That is what happened.
6 weeks prior, or 4 weeks prior, and whenever it was. Well, actually multiple times before that even. But yes.
And that triggered you, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
And rather than me digging into like one of the couple things that I figured out is, number one, that was an opportunity for me to support you, for me to listen to you, for me to be your advocate and say, basically this issue that we're dealing with, that we're looking at, I'm on your side, Tiff.
Yeah.
And instead,
as I'm thinking back about what happened, I think that when I got triggered is when I brought up, that I had just barely tried to implement this thing. you said something like to the effect of, well, that's one way to look at it, or something like that.
Right. I also said something that was incredibly, I've done it before and I really want to break this habit. I said, well, you get what you focus on, Tiff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can focus on that, or we can, like, basically insinuating, well, you should just forget about that and not bring that up.
Yeah.
And to me, it was like, let this just be my idea. Let me just do this now and claim it as my idea, and just shut up about your ideas.
Yeah.
That's how it felt.
Yeah.
Or just shut up about the stuff you've been trying to get me to implement.
Yeah. By the way, like even now, like we had this, I thought, well, we went through a really good resolution process on this, and I am still self-conscious about it. Like I still feel like right now, like, man, I really let you down, and I'm really sorry that I handled that situation the way I did. I really think, I mean, I didn't handle it as poorly as possible. I just did not handle it the way I wanted to. I could have handled it a lot worse, but I could have also handled it a lot better. And so I'm like right now, I'm grateful that I just recently read earlier today the affirmations, the new, the new narrative where judgment is concerned.
Yeah. Well, our intention for this podcast was to get vulnerable. And I do believe that when you can get really vulnerable and say the things that make you uncomfortable, there's healing that comes along with it, and if you're not uncomfortable if you're talking about getting vulnerable and you're not extremely uncomfortable about what it is you're getting vulnerable about,
you're not really getting vulnerable.
No.
You're like glossing it over. And I've done that a lot.
But I appreciate that, honey, because it was a really hard day. It was a hard day for me. I mean, that's not even, there is also the other thing that happened that I know would make you really feel really uncomfortable to talk about, which probably means we should, but I'll let you decide. But
I'm fine.
This is why it's okay, because we continue to show up and do the work, because we continue to have the conversations. And even though there's moments of ego and moments of like slipping up and being human and not making the best choices, like it's the whole thing we were talking about earlier. That's the duality, like you can't have the light without the dark. Mm-hmm. You can't have the growth and the learning without screwing up.
Yeah.
You have to screw up.
Yeah.
To be able to grow past something.
Well, there has to be some discomfort.
Yes.
In fact, the whole purpose of our training is to realize how comfortable, or how to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yep.
Yeah. The other thing you were talking about is Tiff reached out to some friends.
I wasn't even talking about that, but yeah, that's fine too.
What were you talking about?
When I tried to make up with you
after
we were fighting.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that was as part of that whole process, Tiff came to me to give me a hug, and I basically stiff-armed her and said, I'm angry right now.
No, you said, no, don't hug me. I
said, don't hug you. Don't hug you. And then I blamed you. I said, you're mad at me right now. That's what I said. And a nice victim language there. That's literally what I said. She came to hug me and I said, don't hug me. You're mad at me.
Push me away. That was the first time he's ever done that.
Yeah, that wasn't my
in our relationship. Moment. And it was like, I was shocked at how painful that was. It was like really painful.
Like immediately regret and shame. Like I felt so bad that I had done that. I immediately reached out to you, but you at that point didn't. you pulled away at that point, and rightfully so. I immediately regretted it, and I promised to never do that again.
Yeah, I know. It's okay.
I
forgive you. Yeah. And it took a lot of work too. Like one of the things that I had to do, because I did immediately go into, like I was hurt. So I was like, diving into the hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a growth opportunity for me too, because it would have been really easy for me to continue to dive into that and blame you and, repeat all of these terrible things about how horrible you are in my mind, for doing that. And how, I saw the thoughts happening and I was like, man, I don't want to be in this space right now. So I actually went up to our yoga studio. I did need space after that. I wasn't in a space where, and the truth is, neither were you.
Right.
Yeah, you could have handled it better, but you weren't in a space for me to be able to hug you. And when I went up and meditated, like that's why this work is so important, because you can pull yourself out of the situation and see things from a higher perspective. And I was able to see, yeah, you can sit here and you can be a victim and you can choose to not forgive him and you can dive into all of this. You can. And you can have that kind of day. Or you can show Brad some grace and you can understand that he was where he was at and you can choose to forgive him in this moment.
Right.
And that's what meditation can do for you. So for me, it's just so powerful, because it could have been a 2-week fight.
Oh yeah. Well, in the past, it probably would have been.
Right.
Well, and we had a similar situation a month ago in Jacksonville when we were in Jacksonville, and that was a full 24-hour cycle that it took for us to work out of that.
Yeah.
And this one, this was 24 hours ago, and we're already talking about it from a point of, okay, these are the lessons that we've learned from this. These are the things that I've seen. It's uncomfortable. I didn't like it.
Yeah, there's still obviously a little bit of charge. It's fresh. It just happened yesterday, but we can talk about it and we can see what was happening, what was really happening, more on an energetic level.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not, as I think about my themes of consciousness that I'm in right now, I'm definitely not in shame or even guilt. I can see, I felt that. And it's not even embarrassment. It might be embarrassment, which is really close to pride.
Mm-hmm.
And so pride is just one step away from courage.
Right.
And courage is what we need to take accountability. Courage is what I always need to take accountability. So as I'm able to acknowledge that, I can say, look, I did show up that way and I could have done better. I just didn't have it at that time for lots of reasons. I actually fell asleep when you went upstairs. I laid down on the bed and I fell asleep.
Yeah.
Which tells me I was tired when that whole thing was happening, which is a terrible time to deal with emotions like that. When you're tired, and I was also hungry. I had 2 of my big check marks. We're supposed to check in. Hey, how are you doing? I need to have this discussion with you. Are you hungry? Are you tired? Are you in a good spot?
Well, and it's so funny because I could have easily, it's so important to understand these things, because initially, before I went upstairs to meditate and you started falling asleep, I was pissed that you could just do something like that, be so mean, and then just take a nap. You couldn't give 2 shits about what had just happened. I was thinking, how the fuck can he sleep? I was
so charged up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just took a nap.
Well, I laid down because I needed to breathe.
Yeah.
Because I was emotionally charged as well. And I laid down so that I could breathe, and laid down on our bed. And I did fall asleep rather quickly. And it was exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
Because as I woke up, I actually went to a couple of our relationship gurus for inspiration. I went to Matt Nash's Instagram page, and I went to Matt Townsend's Instagram page to just see, is there any inspiration in any of my gurus, in any of their wisdom. And one of the pieces of wisdom that I picked up was there is a time when this is happening. One great strategy and tool is to really this is an opportunity to become your partner's advocate. And I thought that's exactly what I need to do right now. I was a terrible advocate for Tiffany, and I need to be her advocate right now. So that's what role I decided I was going to take. And one of the ways I was going to do that was not let this go on for a day. I wasn't going to let that happen to you. I didn't want you to have to go through that suffering, because last time we did it, it was not fun.
No, never
And
is.
it ruined a whole trip home.
Never is. And I think for couples, it's so easy for people to get stuck in their ego and be like, I'm not going to forgive them, or they didn't care. They're the wrong one. Why would I give in to them or whatever when they haven't done the right thing? And it's just so important, I think, to like disarm yourself and understand that the emotional charge is not serving anyone.
You know what also like just came to me? Because our other thing that we were talking about yesterday, I think it's really dangerous as a couple to get into this idea or this notion that you're ever going to have it figured out and
Right.
you're never going to have these moments of charge.
Right.
I think that's I think that's bullshit. I could be wrong about
Absolutely.
that, but I think you're full of shit if you think like there's this nirvana space of dwelling where you and your partner never trigger each other. Like that would be true enlightenment, but do you think that comes with nothing? Do you think that comes with no trial, no error, no trying something and failing?
What happens as you become more and more enlightened is like you suffer a lot less. Like you were just giving the example that, our fights could last like a week of uncomfortable us avoiding each other, whatever, and then it would be to where it might be a couple days, and then, just
Then a day.
a month ago we had a 24-hour one, and then this one I could definitely see this fight lasting
hell yeah.
lasting days, multiple days. Because I was pretty hurt, and
Yeah.
I was like on multiple levels. Like I was so triggered initially.
Yeah.
And then your reaction just did not give me what I needed. And it was like, it was almost the opposite. So I could have easily dove into that and dug my heels in and drug this thing out, but it wouldn't have served anybody. And so we got to the resolution a lot quicker. And when we're able to do that, it also builds this trust within, because all defenses come down. And even though you do these things sometimes that can piss me off and can come off like total asshole things, the reason why I love you is because you're always willing to come back. Like always willing to come back and say, I was wrong. I'm sorry.
Well, not just wrong, like because yes, I was wrong, but like I can see that reaction. I understand where that reaction came from. And I reacted out of like, sweetheart, I was scared. Sweetheart, I was feeling shame.
Yeah.
Sweetheart, I was judging myself, and I was feeling judgment, and I reacted poorly, and that's not my best self.
Well, and I also, I don't allow you to just carry that burden yourself.
You
like,
immediately.
I always like, and it requires that both people take accountability for their part in it. And it can be such a hard thing, because there can be moments where I'm like, I don't even know what I did wrong here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where you're like, seriously, but you could have always done something better.
Always.
Could have always done something better.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're in a relationship with a narcissist.
True.
In which case, nothing is ever good enough.
True.
Because, well, and here's one thing, like a narcissist will never.
But then a narcissist will never accept accountability.
Right.
For
That's
their
what I was
own.
going to say.
That's how you're going to know. I mean, I think that's the biggest key in knowing whether or not you're in a healthy relationship is are you the only one that's ever accepting accountability and apologizing? Because in no relationship is there only one person at fault all the time.
Right. Because this is the way I approach it, by the way. The way I approach it is, if I show up as my best self, does that thing happen? And I can do that and then acknowledge where I didn't.
Right.
Right. And I can do that because I know you're asking a really similar question. If I show up as my best self, does that situation happen? And we both get to answer that question as individuals and then come to each other and say, here's my opportunity for growth.
Well, one of the keys to consciousness is to always be asking yourself that question. And when you're caught up in the ego and in a fight like that, it's really hard. But I think the more you make a habit of saying, like, am I showing up as my best in this moment? Is there opportunity for growth in this moment? Like, what am I being toxic in this moment?
And I was, by the way, I was being toxic because I was doing the things you said I was doing. I was minimizing you. I was basically gaslighting you.
Yeah.
I was saying, no, Tiff, that's not, come on. Because, and the reason I was doing it is because if I'm the reason we're not executing on this part of our business, what does that say about me? Like, that's what shame tells me. Mm-hmm. That's what judgment tells me. What does that say about me? What's wrong with me? And so maybe it's Tiff's problem. I'll blame her. No, she just simply didn't execute on it. It's her fault, which is nonsense. I'm literally the one who's supposed to execute on this shit.
And this is seriously, you guys, why we feel the need to talk about working with your spouse and running a business together with your spouse, because it can be so fucking hard. Because I literally rewrote our VA's job description. I literally scheduled a meeting to talk about the changes that we were making. And in the meeting, it wasn't just Brad, it was Gabe too, who told me, no, take that off. He doesn't need to be doing that. And then I was treated like that never happened, is how I felt. And it's just this, it just can be challenging. It can be so challenging, but it's worth it.
Absolutely, it's worth it. And here's where it shows up for men, where your self-esteem is concerned. I can tell you guys, like you men, I can tell you, I feel like I came to my wife last night and I told her, well, while we were driving, I said, look, I trust you and I believe you and I believe in you. And we've been going back and forth on this, like who has final say? Is it a 50-50? Is it a me? I have final say. Is it her? And I've come to the conclusion that when it comes to running our business, Tiffany I have run a lot of my businesses from a place of ego, from the lower themes of consciousness. I can acknowledge that. I've done that. And I want to raise my level of consciousness. I want to run my business from courage and above. And I can acknowledge that my partner is already there. Like she gets there a lot quicker than I do and resides in those spaces. It doesn't mean she's a better person. It doesn't mean she has like, she's just, that's one of her gifts. Why wouldn't I tap into that?
Well, one of the things that our mentor talks about, and that this isn't just a theme within our specific relationship, but one of the things he talks about, because they also run a business together as a couple. And he is always coaching Brad and saying, you know, the minute that I was able to let my wife not call all the shots, but almost treat her almost as if she was an oracle. And when she had something that she was bringing to me that she was really inspired about and telling me, like, this is what we need to do, the more he would just shut up and say, yeah, okay, let's go do that and implement the thing that she wanted to implement. That's when their business started to flourish. That's when they started to make the most amount of money. And honestly, this is the thing that we have been stuck on.
Yeah.
And I think that Brad is still doing a lot of healing. You're still doing so much healing from, you know, all of the business failure that you experienced from 2008 and trying to, like, you know, compensate and get your bearings and kind of like, okay, be confident in who you are as running a business. And so you've kind of, your ego has said, well, I can't let my wife call all the shots. You know, I
Right.
can't let her be the decision maker. But what we've been dealing with lately is like, I've been coming to you and saying, another example is when I said, I don't want to buy these houses. That was the last fight I can remember us getting into.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with you making these decisions to buy these houses without running it past me. And you're like, I'm not comfortable with you controlling me. And, and then we ended up not doing so well on those houses. And it's kind of been a reoccurring theme. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but it's becoming more and more apparent that there is some truth to this aspect, that the feminine energy, there is something about it that's like this oracle energy, where they do have the ability to kind of tap into these higher truths.
Well, do you know what visually the way it looks for me? Can I share this vision that I have right now? Like I've been seeing this. It's guys, imagine an army. Like if you think about like a medieval army where you've got the king who's leading the charges on the battlefield. The queen would never be down on the battlefield. That's not where she belongs. She would always be at a point perched up higher, right? Which immediately gives her a better vantage point, right?
Right.
And so she has the ability to look over the entire battlefield, see all where the trees are, where the obstacles are, where the enemy's coming from, and then relay that information to the king and say, protect your flank. It's time to push forward now. Well, it's time to pull back. What kind of idiot king would be in the middle of that battlefield and say, shut up, woman, you don't know what you're talking about?
Well, we went and watched Avatar last night.
Yeah.
And so while, yes, I do agree with you with a lot of that, what's Avatar's wife's character's name?
I can't remember.
Whatever her name is.
Jake Sully and whatever her name is. Yeah.
She was on the battlefield.
Right.
But a lot of times she was up in the air.
Yeah.
She had
a different vantage point.
Right? Yeah.
Can't give the spoilers away.
No. Trenton was actually talking to me about that this morning and how cool that was, like their relationship, how there was just this like something between those two that was just like they needed each other to be able to get that done, that mission done. It's a really cool movie. I love that movie. If you guys haven't seen it.
The new Avatar.
Yeah, Avatar 2.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love that. And I totally agree with that.
I mean, that's just a visual I'm having right now. Like I'm seeing that right now. And of course I want to come back from that battlefield and say, there you go.
Yeah.
We vanquished the foe.
And I want to point out, even in Avatar, she was saying the whole time, like, we need to battle.
We need to fight.
Stop running. We need to go and fight. And
he said, no, trust me. We've got to get away. We're giving the movie away, but that's okay. People will watch it. Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
And yeah. Cool. Well, I guess the way I'd wrap this up, because we're like over an hour now. Couple key points for me is I need to dive even deeper into integrity. Integrity is not something that's just one and done either. Like
it's just continuing to choose.
It's just continuing to choose to integrate, to be whole, like in every area of my life. And where I see I'm not, bring it to the light and share it with you, because you are always so supportive of me when I do. It's one of the things I love about you, when I bring to you where I'm feeling inadequate or scared. That's where you show up as a divine partner as well.
I think that's our job as life partners, is to build your partner up. It's just like any other team. Yeah. Like you're supposed to be each other's biggest cheerleader. And even though there's going to be hard times, you're not always going to see eye to eye. The goal is to get through that, to move through that and figure that out as soon as possible, because what's on the other side is going to be so much better. And it's so easy to shame your partner, blame, and get into all of that negative bull crap. But when you do, it's just not a good place to be.
Yeah. Well, I was not expecting this conversation to go this way. I didn't know where this was going to go, but I've said this now a few times. If somebody else stayed on with us, great. I think that's cool. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe and share it. But this has done so much for me. Like, this has been, I thought we were resolved last night, but there was still a little bit of an emotional charge there. And so there was something else that I needed to own at an even deeper level. And I feel like I've done that. And and I thank you so much for giving me the grace and the understanding, and sharing even more of your thoughts, because I didn't, like, you shared some stuff with me today that we didn't have a chance to share yesterday. And I'm glad to hear all that, all of it.
Good. And Brad and I were just talking about a series that we're going to do, interviewing all of our kids, because we thought, as you know, the topic of our podcast being like blended families and relationships, we thought it would be really cool to introduce our audience to all of our kids and get to know each one of our kids and get to hear everything from their perspective. And so we're going to put together some questions and interview all of our kids.
Bring our kids on. It'll be fun.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you guys very much. This was episode 22. 88 to go to 100. I'm looking, for some reason, I've got 100 podcasts in my mind that once we get to 100, then I'll consider this a real project. But awesome. We appreciate you if you've listened. And if you have any questions or comments, like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. And make sure to follow us on Instagram, True Conscious Couple, on TikTok, The True Conscious Couple, and on Facebook as well.
Yep.
True Conscious Couple, and YouTube. Like, we're all over the place. Look at us go.
All righty.
And if you're in a blended family, especially this time of the year, just love everybody. Don't worry about being right now. Just love everybody, because it's the holidays.
That's great advice.
Everybody needs to be loved. So thanks, guys.
Thanks.